At 11:56 a.m., the tranquil hum of a university campus was abruptly shattered. What unfolded next were profoundly disturbing moments that left an indelible mark on countless lives and forever altered a community's sense of security. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we confront a truly somber subject. We're delving into a recent event that cast a long, unsettling shadow over a vibrant university, compelling you to unravel the complex layers of an agonizing situation.
And this isn't simply about reciting the facts, as crucial as they are. This deep dive into the source material really forces us to grapple with the profound intricacies of human behavior, the devastating ripple effect of dark moments, and, well, the critical importance of examining every available detail in confronting such a profound tragedy. Our goal isn't just information, it's about understanding.
Yeah, exactly. Our mission is clear: to meticulously unpack all the provided sources related to this event. We want to extract the most crucial insights to help you, our listener, gain a thorough and nuanced understanding despite the deeply unsettling nature of the material we're about to explore. We're going to guide you through the raw emotion, the chilling timeline, and the disturbing connections that paint a picture of an inexplicable act of violence. So let's begin our exploration.
The shattered campus and its human cost.
Imagine, if you will, Florida State University on April 17th, 2025. It was a typical spring day in Tallahassee, a vibrant academic community, just teeming with students, faculty, and staff. People going about their day, immersed in learning, research, the everyday rhythm of campus life. The air probably held that familiar buzz of a thriving university, maybe distant chatter, rustling leaves, anticipation for exams or spring break maybe. And then, just without warning, that entire world, built on intellectual pursuit and the promise of a future, was abruptly engulfed in an unimaginable crisis. The very sense of security, the core purpose of a place dedicated to growth, shattered instantly.
That contrast, from this vibrant hub of positive energy to a scene of terror, that's precisely what makes these events so profoundly disorienting, so scarring. What's compelling here is how rapidly such a place, usually seen as this sort of oasis of safety, can be irrevocably redefined. It's not just the immediate fear that grips a community, it's the insidious assault on the very identity of the institution. It creates this ripple effect of, existential dread. This incident, like others we've seen on campuses, it just underscores how quickly a safe space can become a landscape of fear. And that impacts everything, right? Enrollment, faculty, the long-term psychological well-being of everyone there. It takes years, literally years, of dedicated rebuilding and healing.
Absolutely. And at the heart of this devastation are the lives forever altered, starting with those whose stories ended that day. Two individuals, their journeys just brought to a horrific close, futures extinguished by, inexplicable violence. First, we have Robert Morales. He was an FSU dining coordinator. People who knew him describe him as a truly big-hearted man, known for his generosity, his warmth. Beyond his campus work, he was also a dedicated special teams coach for Leon High School's football program, mentoring young athletes, And he was a partner in a beloved local Cuban cuisine restaurant, a community hub. His brother shared something really poignant on X, the social media platform. He wrote that Robert loved FSU, cherished his wife, and just adored his daughter. And what I found next was this surprising detail for the Miami Herald. Robert Morales was the son of a Cuban-American CIA operative. Now, this detail, it doesn't directly connect to the events, obviously, but it adds this layer of depth, doesn't it, to an already tragic narrative. Highlights the rich backstories we never know about.
It's such a powerful reminder, isn't it? Every individual impacted by this kind of violence is a person with a full, complex life, not just a statistic. And what's truly heartbreaking in Robert Morales' case, and really for both victims, is the sheer senselessness. Here are two individuals, neither of them students, just doing their jobs, contributing to the community, and their stories are abruptly, indiscriminately ended. It really underscores the indiscriminate nature of this kind of violence. In those chaotic moments, no one is truly safe. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, it's chilling.
You're absolutely right. It's utterly chilling. The second life tragically taken was Tiru Chaba. He was 45 years old, a husband, a father of two, from Greenville, South Carolina. Tiru was on the FSU campus working, actually. He was an employee of a campus vendor, probably just there for a routine workday, fulfilling a contract. His family's attorney later released a statement that just paints this stark picture of their unimaginable grief. They said the family was living a nightmare. They should have been celebrating Easter, a time of joy, right? Instead, they were plunged into this profound sorrow. These individuals weren't targeted specifically. They were just there. Ordinary people whose lives were eliminated in the blink of an eye.
Gosh, the thought of a family going through that instead of enjoying a holiday, like Tiruchapa's family. It just powerfully drives home the human cost beyond the numbers, doesn't it? It makes you consider the far-reaching ripple effects. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights how these events just devastate families and communities hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles away. It's a cruel testament to the boundless, indiscriminate impact of such a destructive act. The trauma extends so far beyond the campus itself.
Mhm. And then we turn to those who endured the ordeal, those who suffered lasting harm but incredibly survived. 5 individuals sustained physical injuries from the violent acts themselves, and another person was injured just trying to flee the terror, desperate to escape. One story that truly stands out is Madison Askins. She's a 23-year-old FSU student. Her account of survival is, well, it's absolutely harrowing. It's a testament to raw courage, quick thinking under unimaginable pressure. She described playing dead after being struck, a conscious, deliberate decision. She recounted consciously releasing all her muscles, closing her eyes, holding her breath, forcing her body into complete stillness. All the while, she said she could hear the perpetrator talking to himself. She heard him reload a weapon, and she lay there utterly still, trying to trick him into thinking she was no longer a threat. Can you even imagine that level of terrifying presence of mind, that primal instinct in a life-or-death moment?
Yeah, that level of strategic calm, that instinct to shut down, become invisible. It's a remarkable, almost primal response, isn't it, in the face of absolute terror? It speaks to this extraordinary human capacity to adapt and react under the most extreme conditions. But what's also incredibly important to remember here, beyond the physical injuries, which, often heal, it's the profound, often enduring psychological impact on survivors like Madison. These aren't just temporary scares. These are deep, invisible wounds that can linger for a lifetime. They shape everything, right? Their sense of safety, their trust in the world, long after the physical wounds have mended. The mental and emotional scars, they often require extensive long-term support.
Definitely. On the medical side, Dr. Brett Howard, a surgeon at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, he spoke to CNN. He described the surgeries for the patients as very successful. He mentioned 6 patients were received by the hospital. It was later clarified 5 were direct victims, and the 6th was the perpetrator himself. Dr. Howard stated that all the victims were expected to make a full recovery, and remarkably, some were even discharged pretty quickly, which is a testament to the swift medical response. What made it particularly heartbreaking and close to home for Dr. Howard, though, was his personal connection. He's actually an FSU graduate himself. So he felt this profound personal connection to the tragedy unfolding at his alma mater, treating people from the community he was once a part of.
Yeah, and that immediate, highly effective medical response. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It tells you about the preparedness, the skill, the dedication of these trauma teams, stepping into that chaos without hesitation. And Dr. Howard's personal connection, being an FSU grad, it just profoundly humanizes that frontline response. It's a stark reminder that those who bravely step forward to help in these moments, they're deeply affected too. They carry their own emotional burdens from the experience, even while doing life-saving work. Their ability to compartmentalize and just deliver critical care under that pressure is truly commendable.
The eruption of chaos, a timeline of terror.
Okay, so let's unpack the immediate moments of chaos. What actually happened on campus? It was nothing short of terrifying, just a vivid, raw picture of fear and survival. Ryan Cedergren, a student inside the student union, he talked about seeing people suddenly running. That sight just instinctively triggered his own survival response, right? He hid. He remembered it feeling like an eternity before police arrived, about 15 minutes, he thought, and they guided them out safely. That initial surge of panic, the scramble for cover, it's a primal response we've sadly seen too often.
Yeah, that rapid shift from just normal campus life to outright panic is incredibly disorienting. It triggers that deep-seated survival instinct. What's compelling here is that initial, almost universal response, people running, seeking shelter, relying on instincts honed, tragically, by years of active shooter drills, and the presence of law enforcement arriving within minutes. That must have been chaotic, yes, but also profoundly reassuring in such a fluid, terrifying situation. It's a stark reminder of how absolutely critical rapid police deployment is in mitigating harm.
Then there's Mackenzie Heater's first-person account. This one, it really makes you feel the raw terror of that moment. She was just leaving the student union. She saw an orange Hummer. Then a man emerging from it, carrying what she described as a larger gun.
Yeah.
He fired shots in her general direction where other people were just walking. But then, she vividly recounts, he pulled a handgun from the vehicle, turned, and performed a violent act on a woman in purple scrubs. And that was her aha moment, her terrifying realization. There was no target. It was anybody he could see. She described hearing continuous gunfire for a good 20 seconds as she fled, running a mile back to her apartment. And she noted with disturbing clarity that the perpetrator seemed calm. not anxious, throughout the entire ordeal. Just imagine witnessing that composure, that terrifying calm as he unleashed such violence.
Mackenzie's account. Wow. It paints such a vivid, terrifying picture of indiscriminate violence. Her chilling observation, there was no target. It was anybody he could see. That's profoundly significant. It suggests a complete absence of any personal vendetta against specific people. It points instead to this generalized intent to inflict maximum harm on anyone in sight. And the fact that she noted his calm demeanor, not panic or frantic action, that's an incredibly unsettling detail for investigators. That kind of detachment can sometimes indicate a premeditated plan rather than a spontaneous outburst. It hints at a deep internal disconnect or maybe a rigid adherence to some destructive purpose. It raises a really important question. What psychological state allows for that kind of chilling detachment while inflicting profound harm?
Gosh. And the accounts of students hiding, barricading themselves in, equally harrowing. But they show incredible resourcefulness under pressure. Sam Swartz, a senior, found himself in the basement of the student union. He immediately recalled his high school active shooter training. He and his group used whatever they could find, trash cans, plywood to create a low fortress, a makeshift barricade. He remembered the instruction. The goal is to deter and delay. And then Gabriel Santoro, another senior, in the Bellamy building. He helped barricade a classroom door with desks and chairs after hearing sirens and getting urgent alerts on his phone. What's striking is he even noticed the sirens getting louder before the campus alerts came through. It shows how attuned students have become to these warning signs.
These immediate, ingenious responses, relying on prior training. It speaks volumes about the human spirit under duress, doesn't it? But, it also highlights the deeply disturbing reality of a generation that's grown up with active shooter drills as a regular, almost mundane part of school. The fact that high school training directly informed their survival tactics in a real-world life-or-death scenario is, yes, a testament to the efficacy of preparedness, but it's also a stark, painful reminder of the world we inhabit. It forces us to ask, what's the long-term psychological toll on a generation constantly prepared for the worst?
Yeah, it's a heavy thought. Will Schatz, another senior in the student union, described the sheer chaos, the desperate scramble to escape. He heard commotion, but it didn't fully register until he saw people running for the exits in just sheer panic. He immediately joined the flight, ran several blocks, saw first responders arriving swiftly as he fled. And amidst all this, you have the raw emotion of students making tearful phone calls to loved ones. That desperate need to connect, say, I love you, maybe for what they feared was the last time. It really makes you consider that unsettling preparedness many felt due to years of drills. One student even noted that while those drills seemed pointless at the time, looking back, they actually felt less stressed because they had some kind of framework for how to react.
That sense of unsettling preparedness you mentioned, that's deeply significant. It reflects a profound societal shift where something once almost unthinkable is now rehearsed routinely.
Right.
It's a tragic testament to the resilience, the adaptability of young people, sure, but it's also a profound indictment of a world where they have to be systematically trained to survive this. It shifts the very baseline of what it means to feel safe in public spaces, especially schools and universities. The long-term implications for a generation raised with this constant underlying threat. We're still seeing how that unfolds.
Okay, so let's try to create a moment-by-moment visualization for you or a listener. Let's break down the unfolding timeline of terror, piecing together the sequence. 11:00 a.m., Phoenix Ikner arrives at an FSU parking garage. For about an hour, he's seen moving in and out of his vehicle. This initial period, roughly 60 minutes, it's a critical window.
Yeah, that initial hour, him moving in and out of the vehicle. It raises significant questions for investigators, right? Was he gathering his thoughts, preparing weapons? Was it a period of intense deliberation, mental prep before acting? It's a period that would be scrutinized heavily for any signs of premeditation, any final adjustments to a plan. Kind of suggests a level of calm, methodical preparation rather than a sudden outburst.
Then, 11:51 a.m., Ikner departs the parking lot. The countdown to chaos truly begins, just 5 or 6 minutes later, between 11:56 and 11:57 a.m. The violent acts commence with a handgun. He moves methodically in and out of buildings, across green spaces on campus, continuing these horrific acts against unsuspecting individuals.
The rapid escalation.
Yeah.
Leaving the parking lot and the first violent act just 5 or 6 minutes later, it's chillingly swift. This concentrated period of active violence happening in multiple locations as he moves between buildings and open areas, it indicates a deliberate, rapid engagement of targets. It suggests an intent to maximize impact within an incredibly short window. It really highlights the calculated nature of his actions.
By 11:58 a.m., just a minute or two after the first violent acts were reported, 911 calls start pouring in. frantic witnesses reporting someone actively engaging in violence. Crucially, nearby police officers immediately respond.
The speed of those 911 calls is remarkable. It speaks to the immediate awareness of the threat by the campus community. And what's particularly compelling is the immediate response of nearby officers. This demonstrates the critical effectiveness of having law enforcement resources pre-positioned and using rapid deployment strategies to neutralize these situations quickly. That swift action, within minutes, it's often the decisive factor in mitigating further harm. It undoubtedly saved lives here.
And then, incredibly, at 12:00 p.m., just 4 minutes after those first violent acts were reported, Phoenix Ikner is confronted by officers. He doesn't comply with commands. He's struck by a police response in the jaw, then swiftly taken into custody. The entire active phase, from the first reports to his apprehension, lasted a terrifyingly brief 4 minutes.
Right. What's truly striking here is the extraordinary speed with which law enforcement neutralized the situation. 4 minutes. That's exceptionally fast for such a dynamic, dangerous threat. This swift action is the direct result of extensive training, pre-planned protocols, and seamless coordination among the responding units.
Yeah.
It fundamentally altered the trajectory of the event. It prevented what could easily have been a far more prolonged and devastating outcome.
Okay, here's where the details become even more deeply disturbing. Let's talk about the weapons and tactics used. A .45 caliber Glock handgun was recovered at the scene. We later learned, chillingly, it was the perpetrator's stepmother's old service weapon, given its original purpose. That's
Horrific irony.
Exactly. Beyond the handgun, a shotgun was discovered inside the student union, and yet another weapon was found inside his car, the orange Hummer.
The presence of multiple weapons the handgun used, the shotgun nearby, unequivocally, indicates significant preparation and intent to inflict widespread harm. And the detail about the handgun being an old service weapon from a family member, that's a critical link for the investigation. It immediately raises profound questions about access to firearms, security protocols within the home, a tragically common pattern in many incidents like this. It highlights the complex challenges of secure storage, doesn't it?
It really does. Court documents revealed an even more chilling detail, painting a clearer picture of his methods. Ikner reportedly pointed the shotgun at someone, but it jammed. This mechanical failure, just a stroke of unimaginable luck for a potential victim, forced him to abandon that weapon. He then apparently returned the faulty shotgun to the Hummer, retrieved the handgun, and just continued his horrific acts. And surveillance footage captured the whole terrifying sequence with undeniable clarity. It showed Ikner chasing Tiru Chaba, using the weapon on him, and then, in a deeply disturbing act, returning to Chaba, who was already on the ground, to use the weapon again. He was also seen walking behind Robert Morales before using the weapon on him. These weren't random, chaotic movements. The footage suggests deliberate, calculated choices.
That detail about the jam shotgun. It's an absolutely critical point of failure in his plan. A moment of reprieve for someone, thankfully. And it's a chilling insight into the perpetrator's adaptable, persistent intent. He just went back for another weapon. The surveillance footage here is paramount. It provides an undeniable, objective, forensic account of his movements, his targets, the sequence. It leaves virtually no room for doubt about his direct involvement and method. It offers crucial evidence, even if a complete motive remains elusive. It allows investigators to reconstruct that terrifying 4-minute span, second by second.
Unsettling connections, the perpetrator's shadowy past.
So what does this all mean when we start piecing together the fragments of the perpetrator's background? We have to unveil his identity now. And it starts with a deeply surprising connection that sent shockwaves through the local community, especially law enforcement. He was identified as 20-year-old Phoenix Ikner, an FSU student. And, in a twist that complicated everything, the son of Leon County Sheriff's Deputy Jessica Ikner. His stepmother had over 18 years of dedicated service. She'd even been named Employee of the Month, a testament to her commitment.
Yeah, that revelation is profoundly impactful, especially within that tight-knit law enforcement community. The trust, the expectation placed on officers, and then to have one of their own so tragically linked even indirectly to such a destructive act, it creates this profound sense of shock, maybe betrayal, and a huge personal toll. It fundamentally shatters assumptions about where threats might originate. It forces a really difficult internal reflection for the agency itself. It raises immediate questions about that complex interplay between personal lives and professional duties in such an unexpected, awful scenario.
And Jessica Ikner, his stepmom, was actually on duty as a school resource officer at a middle school when this happened. The irony, just cruel. Protecting children while this unfolded, she has since taken an indefinite personal leave and been reassigned. Entirely understandable, given the circumstances and the need for investigative integrity. An internal investigation by the sheriff's office, so far, found no policy violations on her part. But here's the deeply distressing irony we mentioned. Her old .45 caliber service weapon, a tool meant for protection, was allegedly used. We also learned Phoenix had access to his stepmother's personal guns, and had even practiced shooting with her, though, not in an official capacity. This raises that profound, recurring question. How did a weapon intended for protection become a tool of destruction? And what about that access?
Right. This situation just underscores a critical challenge society grapples with constantly, doesn't it? That fine line between responsible firearm ownership and the tragic potential for misuse, especially when someone with a troubling ideological bent gains access. The fact that Phoenix Ikner had practiced shooting with his stepmother while not official training, it would have given him a familiarity, a comfort with firearms. And that comfort, combined with his reported views, well, it amplifies the risk significantly. It forces a difficult conversation about protocols for securing firearms, especially in law enforcement households, and the complex ethical and practical considerations involved, making sure they don't fall into the wrong hands.
As we dig deeper, we find an even more unsettling connection. Ikner's involvement with the Leon County Sheriff's Office's Youth Advisory Council. He was active as a high school junior in 2021-22 in a program designed to build bridges between law enforcement and youth, foster positive relations. Yet in his application to this very program, Ikner stated his desire to help Tallahassee become one of the best places for teenagers to live, grow up, and plant family roots. He also expressed a passion for race relations, believing race sensitivity should go both ways, and claiming there was a clash between the races at his school, and perhaps most tellingly, he claimed, "I've been through more than most people."
That's a profound paradox, isn't it? Someone aspiring to improve his community through a youth program, yet allegedly committing such a violent act. What's particularly compelling here is the early articulation of his thoughts on race relations, and especially that sense of having been through more than most people. These statements, seemingly innocuous at the time, can, in hindsight, be interpreted as early indicators of a victim mentality, maybe, or a deep-seated grievance. While not a direct predictor of violence, obviously, such sentiments can become fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root. They offer a distorted framework for understanding the world. It raises an important question. How effectively can youth programs like this identify or address these underlying issues, these nascent forms of radicalization, before they escalate?
His tumultuous childhood, revealed through extensive court documents, adds yet another unsettling layer. It gives a glimpse into the instability that might have shaped him. He was born Christian Gunnar Eriksson. He legally changed his name to Phoenix Ikner in 2020, specifically to align with his biological father's family. Court records detail this years-long, incredibly contentious, just tumultuous divorce and custody battle between his biological mother, Anne Marie Eriksson, and biological father, Christopher Ikner. His biological mother actually claimed in a lawsuit that he was the victim of psychological and emotional harm from the tender age of 11.
This detailed history, the turbulent childhood, the claims of psychological and emotional harm, the protracted custody dispute, it's undeniably crucial context. Early trauma, prolonged instability during formative years, it can profoundly shape someone's worldview, their emotional landscape, their capacity for healthy relationships. Now, these experiences, they don't excuse or justify violent actions in any way, shape, or form, let's be clear. But they can provide a backdrop against which we might try to understand the development of destructive patterns or susceptibility to extremist ideologies. It's a stark reminder that even people from seemingly normal backgrounds can harbor profoundly difficult internal lives marked by deep emotional pain and insecurity.
And here's a particularly unsettling anecdote from that childhood, a stark illustration of the instability he experienced. At age 10, he thought he was going to Disney for spring break. Instead, in what sounds like a cruel deception, he was flown to Norway by his mother. They stayed there for 103 days, completely out of contact with his father. His mother was later convicted of removing a minor from the state without permission. What's truly telling is that Ikner himself stated he needed counseling after this event. This wasn't just a tough childhood. It was, at times, deeply destabilizing, profoundly traumatic. And he recognized it himself as damaging.
Wow. That specific incident, being misled, held out of the country for over 100 days, that represents a significant traumatic event for a child. It speaks to a profound, fundamental disruption of trust, security, stability at a highly formative age. The fact that he himself explicitly recognized the need for counseling points to the immediate, deeply felt impact it had on his mental and emotional state. In hindsight, this really stands out as a clear red flag, right? A documented moment of significant psychological distress that, maybe in a different context, might have triggered more comprehensive intervention or support. It just highlights how early unaddressed trauma can fester and really shape an individual's internal world.
Okay, here's where it gets truly chilling. When we delve into the disturbing ideologies and behaviors reportedly noticed by those around Ikner, classmates reported him openly espousing far-right and racist views, frequently discussing conspiracy theories. The discomfort he caused was so pronounced, he was actually asked to leave an extracurricular political club because his comments went beyond conservatism. Specifically, he was heard mentioning the ravages of multiculturalism and communism. He made enough people uncomfortable that some just stopped attending the club altogether. That shows how pervasive his unsettling rhetoric was.
And this presents that critical ongoing challenge for any community, any institution. How do we effectively discern the line between extreme, uncomfortable speech, which is often protected, and behavior that signals a direct impending threat of violence? What's compelling here is that the discomfort Ikner caused wasn't isolated. It was significant enough to disrupt group dynamics, alienate peers. These weren't just fleeting thoughts, they were consistently articulated views that disturbed people around him. This raises that crucial question. At what point do these ideological red flags, these consistent expressions of extreme and hateful views, transition from just unsettling speech to clear indicators of potential violence? And when is intervention not just possible, but absolutely necessary? It's a complex ethical and practical dilemma.
What I found next was deeply, deeply disturbing. It pulls back the curtain on an even more extreme fascination he apparently had. Screenshots, reportedly from the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, show his profound fascination with Hitler and Nazis. He reportedly used a drawing of Hitler as a profile photo for an online gaming account. And for another account name, he reportedly used Schutzstaffel, the SS, the ruthless paramilitary group infamous for its horrific atrocities running concentration camps in World War II. This wasn't just abstract interest in history. This seems like a deep personal dive into hateful, violent, genocidal ideologies.
Yeah, the shift from abstract political discussion to an explicit embrace of symbols and names inextricably linked with historical atrocities like the SS, that's a very concerning escalation in ideological commitment. These aren't just views anymore. They are direct connections to organizations responsible for unimaginable suffering and systematic violence. Now, merely possessing such materials or holding such views isn't by itself a crime, but it forms a deeply disturbing psychological profile that, when combined with other behavioral indicators, becomes profoundly troubling. It signifies a potential descent into deeply radicalized thought, where historical violence isn't just observed, but maybe admired, perhaps even emulated.
And if that wasn't enough to indicate his disturbing mindset, his Instagram bio reportedly listed Jeremiah 51.20. You are my war club, my weapon for battle. With you I shatter nations. With you I destroy kingdoms. Now this verse, in its biblical context, points to consequences for those acting against God's will. But when adopted by someone with Ikner's other documented inclinations, the Nazi fascination, the expressed grievances, it takes on this chilling, self-appointed destructive power, a twisted justification for violence.
That particular choice of biblical verse, interpreted as a personal mandate for destruction. When you couple that with the Nazi fascination, the extremist political rhetoric, the personal grievances, it paints a deeply troubling picture. It suggests a mind potentially constructing a highly personalized, albeit twisted, narrative that justifies violence. It's an intellectual, maybe spiritual framework that might have given him permission to act on his darkest impulses, allowed him to rationalize his actions as part of some larger, perhaps divinely ordained purpose. This raises an important question about the role of self-justification and distorted moral frameworks in the progression from abstract ideology to concrete, violent action.
A student newspaper quote from January 2025 captured his response to campus protests against a presidential inauguration. It offers another subtle, but maybe telling, glimpse. He commented, "These people are usually pretty entertaining. I think it's a little too late. He's already going to be inaugurated, and there's not really much you can do unless you outright revolt, and I don't think anyone wants that." Intel. While it sounds dismissive on the surface, the inclusion of that chilling phrase, outright revolt, indicates that extreme, violent action was already within his conceptual framework somehow. It suggests a sentiment that might have just festered beneath a seemingly calm exterior.
That comment, yeah, seemingly casual, but it's incredibly telling. The phrase, unless you outright revolt, It indicates the concept of extreme, violent action was already a possibility within his conceptual framework, even if he outwardly dismissed it as something no one wants. It suggests this internal landscape where such drastic ideas weren't foreign, but rather considered as potential, maybe unpalatable, but potential solutions. The immense challenge for society lies in recognizing these subtle seeds of thought, these fleeting mentions of extreme action, before they blossom into tragic, irreversible actions. It underscores the difficulty of early detection when signs are present but not directly indicative of immediate violence.
The path to accountability and lingering questions.
Okay, let's turn now to the immediate aftermath of the violent acts and Phoenix Ikner's entry into the legal system. Detailing the path to accountability. Following his apprehension, Ikner was hospitalized. That was due to the injuries he sustained when officers struck him in the jaw during the arrest. Upon his release from the hospital, he was transferred to a detention facility in a neighboring county. That was a significant decision, made specifically because of his family's connections to law enforcement in Leon County, where the events happened, to ensure impartiality. His mugshot, later released, grimly showed those visible injuries to his jaw, a stark testament to the force needed to subdue him.
Right, the transfer to a neighboring county is standard procedure, a judicious measure designed to ensure impartiality and completely avoid any perception of conflict of interest, especially given the family ties to local law enforcement. His visible injuries in the mugshot, they serve as a stark reminder of the level of force required to neutralize such an active, dangerous threat and bring him into custody. It underscores the immediate, profound dangers law enforcement faced in that critical moment, the chaotic, high-stakes nature of the apprehension.
During his first virtual court appearance, Phoenix Ikner was formally charged. 2 counts of first-degree murder, 7 counts of attempted first-degree murder, charges carrying the gravest penalties under Florida law. The court found him to be indigent, meaning he couldn't afford a lawyer, so a public defender was appointed. The judge ordered him held without bond, reflecting the severity of the charges and the perceived threat. Importantly, the court also prohibited any contact with victims, their families, or witnesses, standard procedure to prevent intimidation. Crucially, and perhaps tellingly, Ikner invoked his right to remain silent immediately after being taken into custody. He offered no explanation, no glimpse into his motive.
His immediate invocation of the right to remain silent, it's common, but also strategically significant legally. It means the prosecution can't rely on his cooperation or testimony to establish motive or details. However, what's particularly compelling in this case is the sheer strength of the external evidence against him. You have extensive surveillance footage, cell phone video capturing parts of the violent acts, multiple weapons recovered, detailed body cam footage from the arresting officers. This overwhelming, irrefutable evidence means a conviction is not only possible, but highly probable, even without his cooperation or a stated motive. For any defense, especially one trying to establish legal insanity, the bar is exceptionally high. They need to prove not just a mental illness, but that he lacked the capacity to understand the nature or wrongfulness of his actions at the time. That's a legal standard notoriously difficult to meet, especially in high-profile cases where public demand for accountability is intense.
Right. And as the legal process began, the community's healing process started simultaneously. A vigil was held on campus. Thousands attended: students, faculty, staff, community members. A somber gathering to honor those whose lives were taken, support those affected by the trauma. FSU President Richard McCullough addressed the community, acknowledging their anger, numbness, fear, reassuring them, "You're not alone." But here's where it gets complex, maybe controversial. FSU announced a return to classes and business operations just 4 days later. That decision sparked immediate strong criticism online from students. One student's comment really captured the feeling. "Thanks for giving us a week off for snow and 1 day off for a mass shooting. You guys really care." Oof. That comment starkly highlights the deep disconnect between institutional decisions, often driven by a desire for rapid normalcy, and the raw, unprocessed trauma the students felt.
Yeah, that immediate push to resume normal operations is a profoundly complex issue for institutions after such devastating trauma. While there is often a well-intentioned desire to signal a return to normalcy, demonstrate resilience, it frequently clashes directly with the deep emotional and psychological needs of those who live through it. It raises an important question. What's the true cost of an expedited return to normalcy? What are the long-term effects on a community that maybe hasn't had adequate time to process such profound grief, fear, and lingering psychological impact? The student sentiment you mentioned just perfectly encapsulates this tension between administrative mandates and lived experience. Recovery from this is a marathon, not a sprint.
And in a powerful act of solidarity, Florida A&M University, FSU's historically black university neighbor right nearby, immediately closed its campus, a clear show of support and shared grief. The events at FSU also ignited that broader national conversation, as these tragedies so often do. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis swiftly called for the perpetrator to be brought to justice to the fullest extent of the law, a stance on firm legal accountability. President Donald Trump, when asked about gun laws afterward, reiterated his position, saying he has an obligation to protect the Second Amendment, adding his view that the gun doesn't do the shooting, the people do. These political responses, while expected, they just starkly underscore the ongoing societal divisions around how to prevent and respond to these incidents.
Right. The differing responses from prominent political leaders just highlight those enduring, often polarizing debates that invariably surround these events. What's compelling is how quickly the narrative shifts from immediate tragedy to broader societal discussions, gun control, mental health, individual rights. It demonstrates the profound societal fault lines that such incidents expose. And that further complicates the collective healing process, as communities grapple not only with the immediate loss and trauma, but also with these deeply entrenched ideological divides, the profound, long-lasting effects on a university campus, the wider community. It's a complex mosaic of emotions. Grief, anger, but also, hopefully, resilience. The path to recovery is long, multifaceted.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, the weight of what unfolded on that sunny April day at Florida State University, it truly settles in. It's a story that compels us to look beyond the headlines, doesn't it? To delve into the intricate, often uncomfortable layers of human experience, profound trauma, and the chilling reality of inexplicable violence.
What's truly striking here, I think, is that even with so much evidence, so many connections unearthed at turbulent childhood, the instability, the extremist ideologies, that fundamental why can often remain elusive. It's a powerful reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, profound complexities and hidden struggles exist that we may never fully comprehend. Yet they have these devastating, irreversible real-world consequences.
As we've unpacked the disturbing layers of this deep dive, it leaves us with so much to consider. So many unsettling questions for our own reflection. Given all that came to light about Phoenix Ikner's troubled past, the red flags, the ideological shifts, would you have noticed the warning signs that were there, maybe hidden in plain sight before such a violent act unfolded? In the wake of such immense suffering for those whose lives were taken, those who endured lasting harm, can justice truly be served by any legal verdict? Or are some wounds simply too deep for any courtroom decision to heal? And finally, what does this case tell us about the hidden struggles within our communities? Or even the unsettling potential for darkness that can emerge from the most unexpected places, leaving these indelible scars? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a profoundly unsettling but vital story. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.